Scene one, Apple, take one.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shane Borza. Welcome to Film Notes, the show where I talk to people in the film industry about the film industry. Today, we have Ben Robertson, who's the director and owner of Silver Tree Films. And I'm excited to talk to him because he's not only a local person in the industry, but he's one of my favorite kinds of people, which is a multi-hat wearing hyphenate. Ben, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you. I am happy to be here with you, Shane.
Now, we actually met because you and my wife were working on a project. So I kind of know you a little bit peripherally, but before we get into what you're doing, I wanted to ask, how did you get into film work? Is this a lifelong thing, when you were a kid, or is it something you stumbled into? How did you get into doing what you're doing?
Well, I suppose I stumbled into it in college. I was just kind of looking through the majors and I'm like, oh, that one looks fun. I was originally going for some sort of science or physics or something like that, and just decided to change that. And so that's starting in college, started making some student films in college, taking classes, tried to be a part of different productions that were going on locally where I was going to school, and we did some great stuff, did some fun learning work, and that's how it started. And then I started behind the camera, or in front of the camera. So I was doing both at the same time. I would do some student films and things, and then I would act in front of some. And I ended up graduating college, went to Germany. I was a TV show host in Germany for a kids entertainment news show, which was really fun. And after that, I came back, got in a couple of video games and a film, and got in Screen Actors Guild, and moved to LA and started my career that way. So it's been a while.
Well, I love talking to people who are both in front and behind the camera as well. I've only done on-camera stunts. I've never done any acting, so that's something I'm always kind of amazed by. I'm like, how do you do that? But I want to ask though. You mentioned Germany, which I didn't know you're over there. Do you speak German? Are you fluent? How did that work?
Nein. Nein sprechen Sie Deutsch. And if you have German people watching, I apologize for that. So, yeah. No, it just came about my college. There were certain contacts that they knew my college had a good behind the scenes crew. And so they actually came to crew up the whole show from graduates from my college, since it was like a summertime thing. And so they did that. And then while they were there, they just decided to have auditions for on-screen talent as well. So I auditioned, not expecting much, and then I got it. And so I got to go spend some time in Germany.
Weird, maybe slightly far parallel there. I spent a couple of years living in Australia, and that's where I got into film work. So I didn't act, and I wasn't in Germany, but I was in the industry overseas. And I just wanted to ask what it was like going from a non-US version of production to, because you mentioned LA. Were there any big changes or differences, or were there maybe more parallels? How can you maybe compare and contrast those a little bit?
No, I have no comparison and contrasting. We were 50 people on a TV station, all from America and Canada. So we rented a very large house with a bowling alley in the basement, which was really fun. But we were all English speaking. That's why I didn't learn German, because I was there for months, and all around Americans and Canadians. Did learn a little bit of Canadian. So, but other than that, yeah, it was all basic American. We did have some Indians with us as well. That came from a few different parts of India, and that was a major difference. So at that time, which was quite a while ago, they were a good 2 decades behind us as far as with video work. So they would bring up these things, or like, hey, why don't you do this in the edit? And we're like, wow, that's so like high school or something like that. We're not going to do that. And so, but things have changed quite a bit. The Indians that I worked with are just incredible filmmakers now. So
To piggyback on your being bilingual about American and Canadian, I used to laugh and make that same joke about, well, I speak English and Australian. So,
yeah.
so once you got back to LA, you mentioned being in SAG. So were you primarily acting, or what was it that got that flip? Or I don't know, maybe are you still doing both in front of and behind camera work?
No, I'm just behind camera now. So I would occasionally have a friend throw me in front of the camera or want me to do a certain role, and I would do it. I did a couple recently, but no, I don't. Acting is stressful. I like being behind the camera. I like being the one that is telling the story. So the big change happened, probably was one of my I guess it's the big change. I started doing short films behind the scenes when I was in LA and entering film competitions and things like that with friends. So we just do what everybody does. We all get together and make a film, enter it in a competition, see how it does. So we were doing that. But at that time, also, I ended up getting a job working for Paso Productions out in California. And for those that know Paso, it's Clint Eastwood's company. So I got to do two films with Clint Eastwood and watch him direct and work, and that was just astounding.
Some of it is the connection, like the right place to get the thing. And so I've talked to a lot of people, actually, especially last season, that like aren't in LA or New York, they're anywhere else. And it very much used to be you kind of had to be one of those places because that's where everything was. And now there are a lot of other like islands, so to speak. And one of them is Vegas. I don't think a lot of people think of Vegas as a big production place, but every casino has all these shows, and they need a lot of the kind of similar people, like lighting and camera and makeup and wardrobe and all the performers. And it is production. It's just not necessarily film. You have a company, which first I want to ask you, how did you come to the name Silvertree? Is there a story behind that?
So basically, I've always felt that, well, I'm a Christian, and so I've always felt like if I make an impact in this, and if I do something that's worthwhile, it's going to take a miracle. And so God's going to have to do it through me because I need help. And I figured, I was reading all these stories. I was reading Lord of the Rings at the time, and the big white tree. So I'm like, well, whenever you see like a silver tree, white tree, anything like that, it shows that it's something that was, kind of meant to be, something kind of God ordained. And it's like, well, if I'm going to do this company, that's what it's going to be. So, because otherwise it's not going to make it. So.
Well, that's great though, and it is a very strong image, even though it's kind of simple. It's just like if people go to the website, they'll see that kind of tree image, but it just trees evoke a lot of things. Some trees are very ancient. They have strong roots, but there's lots of branches, and there's a lot you can read into those. But so I think that's a great story, especially with, of course, tying in just that Lord of the Rings there on the side. One of the things you have on your site for the film company is that you do videography, you do photography, you do a bunch of different things. So talk to me about how, once you got the company started, did you start with one or the other and then branch out, or was it kind of a all in one from the beginning? So what's a little bit of the evolution and kind of history of that?
Well, it's kind of all in one. I mean, I suppose right now I'm narrowing that focus quite a bit. So I don't want to be all over the place. I have no desire to be, I know you brought up the many hats thing, but I have no desire to wear all those hats anymore. I am strictly going for directing and DP. Those are my two branches, and that's what I stick with. Do I know how to make props? Yes. Do I know how to do makeup if I need to? Yes. Do I know how to light a scene? Yes, I know how to light a scene. So I know these different things, and I know how to take a good photo. And I occasionally do photos for magazines and things, but I'm primarily going towards just directing and DP, and that's what I get hired for the last years. That's, when I'm hired working for another production company, or when I'm working for a company, or doing a commercial shoot or a documentary or anything like that, either direct or DP. That's pretty much all I do. On the same vein of, when you have a business, though, at least for a while, you're kind of spread thin in a lot of different areas. So if I get a project that comes to me and the budget isn't what it should be, I'm not going to hire an editor. So if I get a project that the budget is a little too low, I'm not going to spend, several $1,000s in hiring an editor. I'm just going to do it myself. So in a sense, I do a lot of different things, but I definitely have my strengths and weaknesses. Um, so I'm very visual. So I suppose a lot of people are, but for example, when I'm reading a book and it's a fiction book, I see through camera angles. So, what is the camera doing at this, part, and what is the lighting doing at this part? And so that's basically it. I see very visually. I have done a lot of things in the past, but it's getting more and more narrow as time goes by.
And that's another thing that I find really interesting is the transitions people go through as they change roles over time. And I love also just introducing that to people. My hope is a lot of people will listen to this and learn through the different talks about, like, oh, I never knew that was a job in the film industry, or that people could do that, or those types of people work together. And that's one of my favorite things about film. It's so collaborative. You need a team. You need all these different experts who know different things. And to piggyback a little bit on the multiple hats thing is, even if we're not wearing those hats, just the fact that we understand, like, oh, I know what that person needs or how that person's looking at things, because, like, even peripherally, I've done that a little bit. It can really help us when we're in a certain role to go, even if nothing else, like, oh, I can translate into, like, their speak, so they understand, like, what I'm trying to do, because the departments can be very separate, or like you mentioned, some of those, indie projects or small projects, like sometimes, every department's a single person, or one person is three different departments or what have you. And again, it is a great thing to be able to stack and unstack those skill sets. How did you end up narrowing that down? Is it just purely like interest? Are you kind of like over certain things? Did you find that the company's like growing, or there's more interest in certain roles? Of course, there's a lot of things going on, and the market's always changing, and what's going on in the industry is always changing. It's such a state of flux.
Everybody told me I'd be a good director for a long time. So, I always liked telling stories way back when, and doing different things like that. I've I've had a camera, many different cameras for so many years, and so I'd start off when I was way younger with a camera and just taking interesting pictures and finding the right composition, the right lighting, and things like that. So I suppose it's always been kind of visual. And I did the other things to kind of fill the void and to keep me going and do that. But like you said, although editing is not my strong point, I'm a competent editor. Editing's not my great talent. I can do a good job, and so if I hire somebody, they better be better than me. Um, when I'm editing, or when I'm shooting, actually, I shoot. Let's say I'm on get hired to shoot a documentary. I'm thinking with an editor's mind. I'm thinking, oh, this would be a fun shot to cut to, or oh, this would be a good transition, or oh, let's put a dolly here and do this dolly move into the next dolly move, or one thing or another. So I do think with an editor's mind, and I think that saves a lot of time, because you get a lot of. I've worked with a bunch of people out there that are just like, we're just going to cover everything. And it's like, you're wasting time, you're wasting money, you're wasting people's efforts, you're wasting so much. Don't, I mean, it's good to have coverage. You don't want to be caught short. But if you know what you're doing, you don't have to shoot everything under the moon.
And that's another great example of having those hats be a benefit. And again, you don't have to be an editor, but to understand, even just to know, like, what's the editor going to need to put this together? Or how can I have a little buffer? Like you mentioned, like, we don't need to shoot the shit out of it, but let's just have a little extra just in case there's like, oh, there's a problem. Oh, good thing we have this. But if people don't know that, then like you mentioned, they're either buried in too much or they have too little, and it's kind of like a nightmare. I listened to a lot of the industry podcasts, and like the DGA podcast is great. And they do screenings in the DGA theater with other DGA members. And then the director has another director interview them in front of like other directors. And one of the things that is very interesting to me is to hear how people approach the coverage. And a few of the directors that I've heard recently say similar things like, well, I know I don't need this, so why bother to shoot it? Or I know I do need this, so I have to shoot it.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of prioritizing. I wanted to ask to get back to that narrowing down of like just like shooting and directing. Is that something you do together or separately? And do you have a preference of one or the other?
Both, I'd say. I often do both. Sometimes at the same time. Sometimes I'm just hired for one or hired for another. If I'm hired to DP, a documentary or something like that, if I have a difference of opinion, if there's a hired director and I'm just DP, I'll work with the director that's there and offer suggestions. But again, I don't want to step on their toes. And one of the things I've learned from doing a multitude of lots of different things to just playing a part, I really enjoy playing my part. And I really enjoy working with people that know their stuff and can bring their A game to the project and make it a better project. I don't want to be there doing it myself. It's not all about my vision. I want to hear what somebody else is doing. I don't want to hear everything that they're thinking, but if someone's hired for a director, they're in charge, and I will play my part, and I will try to do the best I can, whether that means being quiet and doing exactly what they say, or if they have a question, then I give my input. So I'm happy to do one or the other and just play my part. Or if it's a smaller project, I'm happier to, just do all of it. And then if I'm doing all of it, I will often reach out to the crew members that are with me, like, okay, this is what I was thinking. What do you guys think about it? Since if I'm wearing a multitude of hats, I would like to check myself almost like that. I would like to get other people's opinions on it. So, and honestly, that's one of the things that I saw with Clint Eastwood's company. I've got stories of watching him in different things, and I was only on with him for 2 pictures, but I would watch him work, and he's really good. He's got a core group of people, and this is how I wanted to make my company. He's got a core group of people that are top of their class. Everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody's doing great. They understand what's going on. There's not 100 people. There's just the core group that knows what's going on. There's enough to get everything done. And so they will work together, and everyone will bring their A game to make a better picture. Versus, no names will be mentioned, but other large sets that I've been on and been a part of the AD team and things like that. There's so much waste. And hey, fine, if you're just getting tax credits and you just need to waste the money, that's one thing. No problem. I can play that role. I'm fine with that. But if it's something that I'm responsible for the budget of, it's just like, I want my core people. I want to do this. I want to get the best darn picture we can get with what we've got. So
I'm glad you brought up that idea of the core team, because that's one of the things I was going to ask you with both your roles, because I have definitely worked with DPs who come in and it's like it's just them, and then sometimes it's them and they bring all their own equipment, and sometimes it's them and their team, or it's them and their team and all the equipment. They just come together. And I worked with people who say, well, I got to have my AC. They have shorthand. It makes everything faster and easier. And then I have other people where it's just like, maybe they're by themselves, or they're meeting the people they're working with on the first day of shooting, and they kind of figure it out over the course of the shoot, regardless of how long it is. And again, even in LA, it is such a small world, and you can really get to know people fast, either by reputation or, spending time with them on set. As you know, it feels like you've known each other for years. Sometimes it's only weeks. But where are you with that? Do you feel like if someone hires you, you're like, oh, I want to bring my team, and then it's just a matter of if they have the budget to do that or not? Or are you still trying to put that kind of thing together here?
I'm pretty easy working with other people, so I would say I'm very flexible. If somebody hires me to play a role, I mean, I'll work with whoever. Some people are better to work with, and some people are not as good to work with. I think the industry in general is getting much, much better. People are getting a lot friendlier, I should say. And it used to be where, if you're not in the club, you're rejected, you know. And now it's like the club is expanded to where people are just happy to work and they're happy to make great projects. And if, don't come in with an attitude saying you know everything about cinematography if you're only the AC. And oh, forgive me for saying that. ACs are great. I've been an AC. I am not the talented AC. I have seen some ACs that just blow your socks off, and they're just incredible. And it's just their knowledge of the lenses, their knowledge of everything to do, and the way they have everything. It's like artwork watching them work. So I'm in no way putting down ACs. The right AC is worth their weight in gold. So, and it's really amazing to watch. But I'm happy to work with anybody. You tend to get favorites. You tend to get people that you like and people that you don't like. You're like, oh, I'm working with this person again. Oh, great. So it just depends. But it also depends on what you're shooting. So I've been on some of the different shoots that, whether it's an action shoot or different things like that. Um, Sometimes, a good focus puller is just, you got to have it. So, you've got somebody that's doing their, I'm sorry, wrong hand, doing the focus pulling with their head in a monitor. And I mean, that's a lifesaver to have somebody that's just, it depends on the camera moves that you're doing. Um, but if you can have somebody do that, that's incredible. It also depends on what equipment you're working on. So yeah, it's a big mix of, one or the other.
Sorry to stop the show, but we've got some bills to pay around here, and to do that, I wanted to point out a couple things I've got on offer at shaneborza.com. As both a master level mental health coach and an award winning filmmaker, I have the experience and expertise to help you go further faster, regardless of whether that is in your production or life. I am psyched to announce all my courses and books have been updated and expanded and are available on both Apple Books and at my shop. Especially wanted to point out my film notes book and workbook, where you can learn everything you need to make your film and get it out to the world. If you need help with either your life or film, please reach out. And now, back to the show. You have some things listed on your site. Do you have some go-to stuff that you prefer, or some like a certain rig or anything that you like to use?
I like long, slow shots. I get made fun of for that. I mean, I can do quick shots and I can do handheld and whatever. But me personally, I love the long, slow shots. So that being said, I like a lot of dolly work. I've got a dolly and I do use it often, and I like using it. And I like making those shots. And as far as cameras go, my main camera, my personal camera, is the Sony FX9. And I've got a range of, prime lenses with it and a couple of zooms. So I use that. I use a lot of Sony. I've got smaller Sony cameras as well. I do film occasionally for NFL films. I'm one of the camera guys for that, and we do the TV shows and promotions and things like that. Not so much games. The game guys are incredible. Watching these game guys. Side note, watching these game guys that are filming the games that are filming for NFL, and they throw the camera up, and it's just like when they're focusing, on a quarterback way down there throwing a ball, and they keep the ball in focus and zoom in and then zoom out, and then they're changing the focus the whole time and catch, and it's all in slow motion. It's like watching those guys is just incredible. It's just, I'm in awe. But we do more of the TV shoots, and so whenever we do that, it's usually a mirror. The mirror is the stable camera. Mirrors are great. All their, I love the menu. Sony menu keeps changing. I wish Sony would not do that. I wish that menu would stay the same for the camera. It changes for like almost every camera, I think. But yeah, so mostly Sony, dolly shots. I love having a good sound guy with me. I mean, I can record. I've got microphones and booms and all that, but I love having a good sound person, so I don't have to worry about any of that.
Do you have certain genres or types of projects? And of course, we're all doing whatever gets thrown our way, but do you have a soft spot or a certain focus in any kind of genre or type of content?
Yes, I would say that for films and stuff, we start doing some more sci-fi. So we're looking at more sci-fi films. We've got a couple of like heart-wrenching, emotional stories as well. So it's kind of both of those. Documentaries, it's kind of whatever somebody's going to throw at me and whatever I'm going to get paid for, which have been quite a few different things, surprisingly. And then other documentary projects as well as private projects. I end up working with a lot of circus people and gymnasts and sports people. So unintentionally, I started doing a lot of that. And I mean, it's very fun. It's very exciting. I did a feature documentary that just got out of coloring recently. And so we are shopping it around looking to sell it, and it's on Cirque du Soleil, or circus artists. It's on a bunch of circus artists. I mean, Cirque du Soleil is one of the companies, but there's various companies in it. It's not sponsored by them. This is completely independent. But we followed all these circus artists in Las Vegas as the shows closed down during COVID. And we followed 20 some artists around and saw what happened to them just in order to tell their story. And we got some, great things. So it was really fun watching and filming some of these people. I filmed interviews, I filmed their daily life, I filmed some with their kids, some with their temporary job, some doing this, that, or the other. And then I would film their training because a lot of them are still training during this time. And just as an example, I'd be, having my camera and going along filming with somebody as they're running down a track, and then they start jumping and flipping, and they jumped right out of my frame. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to do that again. So yeah, it's been a lot of sports, but I really do enjoy sci-fi.
We were talking a little bit earlier about one of your early projects, and I'm going to contact your buddy Chris who helped out. So tell me a little bit about that Green Lantern shoot that you did, because I mean it's a superhero, but a lot of that superhero stuff, especially things like Green Lantern when they're off planet and then outer space, like it is very kind of sci-fi adjacent. So if you can tell me a little bit about that project, and even if I forget if it's out still, like can people see that as on YouTube or someplace?
So we ended up making a 5-minute Green Lantern film. I directed it and I shot it. We did a huge amount of pre-production on it. And the only reason why we did it is because my costumer, who's a very talented costumer, you'll probably have him on your show in the future, very talented costumer. He also makes superhero costumes. He gets the specs from like the latest Superman film or this film or that film, and then he makes the costumes custom to people that order them. Or when he's doing a costume for a project, he'll work with the directors, work with everybody that's there. He just did another one that I won't mention. It was another superhero one, which is gonna be fun. But when he's making these costumes, then he does it from scratch. And so we did a Green Lantern, a 5-minute Green Lantern. Only reason we did it is because he knows a few of the people that are on James Gunn's 2025 Green Lantern production. So we did it strictly to show them as a resume saying, hey, here we are. This is what we do. We'd love to be a part of your project just because we love your work. So that's what it was meant to do. It was meant to just be a resume of sorts. But some pictures got out on social media, and then some comic book people start getting really excited about it. And we start getting all these views and on all these different platforms. We're like, okay, well, it doesn't matter anyway. We'll just release it and just release what we've got. So we started doing that. So it's on YouTube now. It's Green Lantern Origins, Silver Tree Films. And we just made a 5-minute, we were just having fun. And we made a 5-minute short based straight off of the Origins comic book. We have a writer, Lucas. Lucas wrote this 5-minute script that introduces us to the Green Lantern when he gets his ring and gets his powers. And so we started that. We had a great time. Chris designed the costume. He pretty much came up with the story. He was like, he's a big Green Lantern fan. So he was like, let's do this. And I'm like, great, let's do it. And then so we started planning from there. So he was the motivational force behind it. I was the practical force, like, okay, we're going to do this shot instead of this. We don't want to do this. We don't want to spend the money on this. We're going to do this. And so we just did an independent Green Lantern short, shot it out in the desert. We built a spaceship cockpit, and then, through visual effects, made the rest of the spaceship. It was very fun. It was very fun to do. We made it. We wanted it to look like this is, a major motion picture that's coming out. And I think we accomplished that. We had quite a few comic book people comparing it to various films or upcoming films, and we had to tell them, no, one, this is not the upcoming film. This is just our project. This is what we did, and to get compared to that is means we did our job. So, and Chris made the costume for Mark Justice. Mark Justice played our Green Lantern. Excellent actor. Did a great job as Hal and the Green Lantern. And then we went to various places. We shot down in the desert. We shot a few shots in this place or that place for sets. And then we built a cockpit. And then we went to Scrogan's Aviation and talked to Doug there. And Doug helped us out a lot. We got to film in a Black Hawk that Chris Pratt used 2 days before for a film. So we filmed in some maintenance scenes on a Black Hawk, and it was a lot of fun.
Plug for people who are listening to the audio. This is a YouTube show. So if you are watching it, you'll have seen, we'll put some stuff on the screen, but if you're only listening to the audio here, make sure you go to YouTube so you can see some of that. And also the link will be up on the screen too, so you can go see the short. I'm glad it's out. It is great to have like a calling card type of thing, and it can be a lot of work. So I'm really glad that came together. And it also, again, goes back to that idea of team. Like you mentioned, like, oh, I was the source of this and they were the source of this. And then together, you need that peanut butter and chocolate, or, the peanut butter and jelly, or whatever it is, to come together to do so much more than you can alone. We talked about a lot of different things, and I want to make sure we get back to the namesake of the show, which is the film notes. So a couple different things here. You mentioned focusing on both directing and cinematography. So what might be a couple notes, whether it's lessons learned, some wisdom and experience that you might want to share through either one or both of those lenses that you could tell some people?
I suppose a lot of things. Be humble. That can be a hard thing with, the younger crew right now that's coming up. It's eagerly looking for jobs and trying to make their mark. I've worked with some people that are just like, well, I know everything, and they're really hard to work with. So be humble. Know your stuff. Know those lenses. Know the lighting. Know what lighting does to an image. And, in order to get a certain feel for a shot. What camera movement do you need to do? What lighting do you need to do? What what do you need for this? Know everything you can, but be willing to keep learning because we all keep learning. I mean, as the industry changes, I got to watch and speak with occasionally. I wasn't working for him, but I got to watch Janusz Kaminski, Steven Spielberg's cinematographer. My goodness, it's such a joy. It was such a joy getting to watch them work together, and it was so incredible. And he has worked for how many years has he worked for? And then, as if you think about, the way technology's changed, new cameras that come out, new lenses, rehoused lenses. Take a classic lens, and if a company rehouses it, what look do they get through this? There's always things to learn. There's so much to learn, and then yeah, always learning is a great thing. To not pretend like you know it all, and to learn from people. And then a lot of times the people that you're on set with, you can learn from them as well. And it's like you never know what gem somebody has, and or what they're like in their personal life. People are important. I'm an introvert. I tend to hide in the corner, read a book or something like that. But people are really valuable and people are important. And that's one of the films that we're just trying to get funding for right now. It's a very serious film, but very fun and very musical, about the value of people. People that have been thrown away by society, and realizing that those people are valuable. They are important, and in many cases they have something to give. And so realizing that people should be loved and people should be appreciated and taken care of. You take that thought and you apply it to the people that you work with, and you never know how far you're going to go with that. So that would be my main piece of advice. Uh, Along with that, always keep learning. I mean, I love American Cinematographer and various articles from different, or YouTube posts from different DPs that are out there that show how they got this shot or that shot, and even some photography people that come up with a great image, and they're like, well, this is what I did for it. And it's really interesting learning from them, and learning those. And technically, a lot of the trade shows, I mean, it's good to know what's out there. If somebody says, I've got Asteras, that they're not talking about a microphone. It's good to know equipment, and know so when you're on set, and if you are, let's say you're a grip on set, and you're helping out the cinematographer, and he's telling you what to light. Know what the terms are, know what it means to, light a particular set in a certain way, know what the actors are going through. Oftentimes, when we're thinking technically about lighting a set, there's an actor right there. And you need to keep that in mind. Like, they're going through a lot. They're they have their own personal life, and they're trying to do this character, and they're trying to do it really well. And maybe it's an emotional scene. So have all your stuff together and be ready to support them. I just did a film where a little girl has to break down and cry. Very emotional scene right in the kitchen. And little girl was really crying. We knew she could bring it. And so we're like, okay, we better be ready. So we got there, for that scene, we started lighting everything early. We had a stand in, we started doing everything early, getting everything ready. So when it came time, we could make on the fly adjustments. Oh, the lighting needs to change slightly here. And so we can just do things slightly that are different. We've done our homework. We can still do everything. And then if somebody gets a great idea about, oh, let's do this with this scene, we're like, okay, we can do it because we've done our homework. We got the shots that we planned to get. It matches the storyboard. We're good. We've got what we needed. Let's get this extra thing. It might work, might not. Um, what other advice? Don't erase your cards before you know it's saved. So many times I think it's a DP, DIT. There's this whole group of people that, hold the cards for cameras, the various different cards. And they're like, is it okay to erase this? I think so. Did you save the shot? Do you have it saved in on two hard drives? Things like that. So always know when to erase. That only happened to me once in my career, where I did a shoot. It was on location. Thankfully, it was a client that I knew well and has hired me often, even since then. We were on location. We did an interview with just one person. I didn't save it right away, and I wrote over the card. What a horrible feeling. Don't have that feeling. Save it. But I only did that once in my whole career of all these last years. So, what other advice would I have? Be kind to people. Don't keep secrets. Things like that.
Well, great gamut of advice there. I mean, some of that's just good life advice. So I appreciate you sharing all those. And those are those lessons. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to be like, oh, I screwed up, but I'll learn from that and I won't do it again. So it's about kind of rolling with that and still moving forward. And we've all had those things happen, and hopefully we can use it to improve and get better and not have it get in the way. Before we wrap up here in a few minutes, I wanted to ask, we've talked about what you're doing, some of your projects, your company. Where can people connect with you, hire you, or see your work?
My website is up. It hasn't been updated in years. I think my email's on there. My phone number's on there. Email or phone calls or texts are always a great way. It's always nice to meet people at industry events where, we know somebody. Most of the people I meet are on jobs. So I get hired to DP something and then I'll meet other people and we'll work on it, or somebody will be a drone operator on it and I'll be a DP or directing this or that. And so that's a great way to meet people. Honestly, phone and email, I'm pretty old school. I mean, you can go look at my YouTube. My YouTube is mostly there for support for the business. It's not for getting views. So it's mostly just for support for the business. Typically, when I do a project, it goes out on the client's page, or so all the ones on my page are not for views. That's horrible to say, but you're welcome to look at my YouTube page. My licensed work is not on there. So nothing from NFL, nothing from a big director, nothing from anything I was really hired to do to work for another company where I sign an NDA or sign something like that. None of that. You'll find it, but you won't attach it to me. It's like I filmed a bunch of Kirk Cousins stuff for NFL. The TV show Quarterback for NFL Films, and it's on Netflix. So I did a lot of Kirk Cousins stuff. So, but that doesn't get attached to me. So a lot of my stuff is just out there, and you'll never know unless I show you the behind the scenes photos. It's like, yep, that's my work. But YouTube, webpage, when it comes all down to it, call or email me.
And like I mentioned before, if you're just listening to the audio, this is a YouTube show which you can watch. And I always encourage people to watch this show, not only so they can see the person, but I throw up on screen like the links or like the page or like the poster. And so you get to see the work. Of course, it's convenient to listen to a podcast and easy to share. That's why I put it out in both. So wanted to thank you for being here and talking a little bit more about what you're doing and what you've done. And as I just mentioned, for people who are listening, this is both a YouTube show to watch and a podcast you can listen to. So regardless of which one you prefer, share with others. And if you're making work or you'd like to be on the show and you're doing stuff, I always love not only talking to new people and showcasing what they're doing, but also different kinds of people. Like I mentioned in passing, there's a lot of different jobs in the industry. And my goal is to talk to as many different kinds of people as possible. And they don't all have to be hyphenates. So even if you just do a single thing. But Ben, wanted to thank you again for being here.
All right, thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the show, please click on the link below. You can also contact me at my website if you have any questions about filmmaking or anything else. Off to the side, you'll see a couple of my books, Film Notes and the Film Notes Workbook. I encourage you to check those out if you'd like to learn more about filmmaking. See you in the next episode.
Scene 1, Apple, take 1.